It's a story that's decades old but still rings true today. HBO documentary 40 Years a Prisoner revisits Philadelphia in 1978, when the Black Liberation Group MOVE were involved in an epic police siege and shootout. The story follows Mike Africa Jr., whose parents were arrested.
It captures the humanness of us, of who we are, and it shows who we are versus the image that we've been portrayed as. And that is like the element that I think is so valuable in it, because people get to see us for us, who we are and how we interact with each other, the love we share with each other. The story captures the deep-seated racism and issues in the city of Philadelphia that we can see, that we can really begin to make some changes on.
A police officer was killed in the shootout, for which 9 MOVE members were convicted and sentenced to 30 years to life. The director, Tommy Oliver, finished editing the film in June, just days after George Floyd was killed under the knee of a police officer.
It's a cautionary tale in a big way, because when we forget our history, we're doomed to repeat it. And this was something that, like you said, you didn't know about it, your parents barely knew about it, and here we are fighting for the same thing some 40 years later. Fighting against police brutality, wrongful incarceration, systemic racism.
If Tommy had done this film 10 years ago, it would have been timely. If he had done it 20 years ago, it would have been timely. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it would have been timely. Because when has we ever in this country had a time where Black people were not under siege, for doing nothing wrong?
The siege ranks as one of the most dramatic and violent clashes of the Black liberation struggle, involving MOVE and the Black Panthers in the late 1960s and 70s.
The denial of parole is violent.
It's also a story about love. It's a story about a child's love. It's a story about romantic love. It's a story about love of a city.
The story ends on a somewhat upbeat note, with his parents released 40 years later.